boot stamped down on the wooden plank of the stagecoach platform. Snow scattered across the dirt. 3 men in heavy wool coats stepped into the alley between the buildings. They had rifles slung low and a folded paper in the lead man's fist. A woman climbed down from the stagecoach. She was thin. Her wrists shook. The biggest man in the alley grinned and started walking toward her. Then a second pair of boots crunched the snow behind her. Slow, heavy. The woman climbing down was Hannah Reeve, though she had told no one that name on the long ride from Boston. A shadow fell across the wooden boards. The lead man with the paper stopped grinning. Hannah turned around and looked up at the giant of a mountain man waiting on the platform above her. Why had he come for her? Just stay with me on this one. The stagecoach driver lifted Hannah's trunk down and set it in the snow. The trunk was small. It held everything she owned in the world. 2 dresses, a pair of boots from her dead mother, a Bible with her father's handwriting in the front, her father's pipe, which would never be lit again. The driver tipped his hat. The horses pulled away. Hannah stood alone with her trunk between her boots. The mountain man had not moved from his place on the wooden boards above her. He was tall, big through the shoulders. A long fur coat hung down past his knees. His beard was streaked with gray, though his eyes looked younger. Hannah did not know exactly how old he was. The ad had said only this: Mountain Man, 40 years. Black Pine, Montana Territory. Needs a wife who can write. She had answered because her father was dead. She had answered because the bank in Boston was taking her house, and there was nowhere else in the world to go. The 3 men in the alley had not moved. The biggest one held the paper in his fist and kept his eyes on her. The other 2 kept their eyes on the mountain man. "Are you Hannah Reeve?" the mountain man said. She nodded. Her throat would not work. "Cole Breyer," he said. He held out a hand the size of a wash basin. "I sent for you." She took the hand. Her own hand disappeared inside his. He did not crush her fingers. He shook once and let go. "You hungry?" he asked. She nodded again. He bent down, picked up the trunk by its leather strap, and lifted it as if it weighed nothing at all. He turned and walked toward the general store across the street. Hannah hurried after him. Her boots slid on the snow. He glanced back. He slowed his step. He did not offer his arm. The 3 men in the alley fell in behind them at a distance. Hannah could hear their boots crunching the dry snow. She did not look back. Inside the general store, the air was warm. It smelled of coffee and salted meat. A black iron stove burned in the corner. A round man behind the counter looked up. His eyes flicked to the door and then back to Cole. He gave a small nod that Hannah did not understand. Cole set the trunk by the stove. "Bread," he said, "and a chair for the lady." The storekeeper pulled a chair from behind the counter and set it near the warm iron. Hannah sank into the chair. Her legs had been shaking since the last stop in Cheyenne. A loaf of bread came on a wooden board. A small wedge of yellow cheese. A tin cup of warm milk. Hannah ate slowly because her stomach had forgotten how to be fed. Cole stood next to the stove and watched the front window with his arms crossed. "Eat all of it," he said quietly. She ate all of it. While she ate, he spoke quietly to the storekeeper. Their voices were too low for Hannah to hear from across the room. The storekeeper looked at the door again. He went into a back room. He came out a moment later with something wrapped in oilcloth. He set it on a shelf behind the counter. Hannah finished the last piece of bread. She wiped her hands on her dress. She tried to stand up. "Sit," Cole said, gentle but firm. "Snow is coming heavy. We do not ride up the mountain before I know what those men outside are about." She sat back down. She folded her hands in her lap because she did not know what else to do with them. "Do you know them?" she asked. "I know what they are. Same thing the world over. Men with a paper. My father had debts. I figured he did. I am sorry. For what? For coming here. With debts following me. Cole looked at her then, really looked at her for the first time. The hardness on his face softened by about an inch. Miss Reeve, he said, you did not bring those men here. They were here before you arrived in this town. They were here before you wrote your first letter to me. Do you understand? She did not understand him. Not at all. But she nodded because it was the only thing she could do. The bell above the door rang. The three men walked into the store. Cold air came in with them. The biggest one still held the folded paper. Mr. Breyer, he said, glad to find you indoors. We come on business that cannot wait until spring. Cole did not turn around. He kept his eyes on Hannah. Eat the rest of that cheese, he said. There was no cheese left. But she picked up the small rind from her plate and held it like something precious. Then Cole turned around. Slow. He uncrossed his arms. Garrett Hook, he said. You remember me. That is something. I remember every man I have ever seen on a porch with a paper in his hand. The two other men spread out a little. One drifted to the front window. One drifted to the back door. The store was now a box, and Hannah understood with a cold, small certainty that she was inside the box. Garrett Hook laid the paper on the counter. He smoothed it with one heavy-gloved hand. This here is a bond, he said, signed by a man named Henry Reeve. 2 years passed. Sum of $2,400. Plus interest. The debtor is in the ground. The bond is not. And what do you figure that has to do with me, Garrett? Garrett Hook smiled. He pointed at Hannah with 2 fingers. The bond names a daughter. As collateral. In the event of default. Which has occurred. Which makes the daughter the property of the holder. Which is me. She heard the words, but they did not make sense in her ears. Property. Daughter. Collateral. Her father had not been a fool. Her father would not have signed his only living child away on a piece of paper. Let me see that, Cole said. Read it from where you stand. Let me see it. Garrett Hook stared at him. Cole stared back. After a long second, Garrett Hook pushed the paper across the counter with one finger. Cole walked to the counter. He did not pick up the paper at first. He looked at it. He looked at it for a long time. Hannah realized something then that she would not realize fully until later, but felt now like a small bird flying past her ear. Cole was not reading the paper. He was looking at the marks on it. He was looking at the shape of the letters. He was looking at the signature at the bottom most of all. Henry Reeve, Cole said quietly. Plain as day, said Garrett Hook. You bring this from Boston yourself. From a man in St. Louis, who bought it from a man in Chicago, who bought it from the original lender in Boston. That is a long road for a piece of paper. It is a longer road for a daughter. Cole's jaw moved. Just once. Like he was chewing something he could not swallow. Hannah, he said. He did not turn around. Come here, please. Hannah stood. Her legs were not shaking now. She walked to the counter and stood next to Cole. The paper was in front of her. She looked at it. She saw the signature. Henry Reeve in her father's hand. She saw the date. November of 2 years ago. She saw the amount. $2,400. Is that your father's writing? Cole said softly. She wanted to say yes because lying felt dangerous. She wanted to say no because saying yes felt like signing herself away. She looked at the signature. She looked at the loop on the R. She looked again. Something in her chest went cold and clean. It is the right shape, she said. But my father, after his hand was crushed at the foundry, wrote his R the wrong way. From the bottom up. Always. The loop comes back on itself. She put her finger near the R without touching it. This R is written the right way. Garrett Hook laughed. It was not a real laugh. It was a sound he had practiced in front of mirrors. A daughter's word about her father's handwriting, he said. Now there is a courtroom defense. Cole did not move. Garrett, put your hand back on the counter where I can see it. Garrett Hook had not moved his hand. But now Hannah saw that the man at the back door had a pistol half drawn. Cole had not turned to look. Cole had only watched the reflection in the glass of the store window. Easy, said Garrett Hook. The man at the back door slid the pistol back into his belt without looking down. Step inside, Cole said. We are inside. Step into the back room. The four of us. The lady will sit by the stove. We will settle this in the warm where there is light to read by. Then you ride out of Black Pine before the dark. Garrett Hook considered him. He looked at the storekeeper, who had not moved during any of this. He looked at the door. He looked at the snow falling outside, which had begun to come in white sheets now. All right, mountain man, he said. The back room. Then we settle. Cole nodded once. He looked at Hannah. Sit by the stove, he said. Do not open the door for anyone but me. Anyone, Hannah. Do you understand? She nodded. He squeezed her shoulder. It was the first time he had touched her since the handshake. His hand was warm even through her dress. Then he and the three men walked through the door behind the counter, and the storekeeper closed it after them with a small click. Hannah sat by the stove. She listened. She heard low voices. She heard a chair scrape. She heard Garrett Hook laugh that bad practice laugh again. She heard Cole's voice, low and steady, asking a question. She heard a long silence after that question. She thought about getting up. She thought about running out the front door. But where would she run? Into the snow. Into a town where the only person who knew her name was behind that door. The storekeeper walked over to her with a fresh tin cup of coffee. He set it down on a small table by her chair. He gave her a small, kind look and walked away again without speaking. She drank the coffee. It was hot and very strong. Her hands stopped shaking around the tin. The fire popped softly in the stove. The snow outside hit the window in soft pats. The clock above the counter ticked. The lamp in the corner gave off a yellow warmth. For one strange moment, sitting there with the coffee in her hands and the fire at her boots, Hannah felt almost safe. That was when the front door of the store blew open. A man stood in the doorway. He was small. Black coat. Wet snow on his hat. Round wire spectacles low on his nose. He carried a leather case under one arm. He did not look surprised to be there. He looked like a man who had timed his arrival. Mr. Cornelius Pinckney, the storekeeper said quietly to Hannah, almost as an apology. Black Pine's lawyer. The only one we have got. Pinckney closed the door behind him. He stamped his boots. He looked at Hannah. He looked at the door behind the counter. Miss Reeve, he said. You are Miss Reeve. I have come up from the courthouse in Helena. How, Hannah said. How do you know me? The bond was registered, Miss Reeve. 3 months ago. Filed with the territorial court. The holder paid the filing fee. That is what makes a bond like that something more than a piece of paper. That is what makes it enforceable. Hannah stood up. Her legs were back to shaking. It is forged, she said. Pinckney did not blink. That, Miss Reeve, is a question for a judge. A long way from here. In the meantime, the bond is on the books. In the meantime, you are obligated to remain in Black Pine until the matter is heard. You cannot leave this town. Not on the next coach. Not on a horse. Not on foot in the snow. You are bound by writ to remain. The door behind the counter opened. Cole walked out. The 3 men walked out behind him. None of them looked happy. Garrett Hook had a small line of blood at the corner of his mouth, which he did not wipe. Pinckney lifted his small chin. Mr. Breyer. Mr. Pinckney. You will accept that the writ has been served. I accept what I have to accept. I dispute what I can dispute. Pinckney almost smiled. And what is it you wish to dispute today? Cole walked behind the counter. He bent down. He took the cloth-wrapped bundle from the shelf, where the storekeeper had set it earlier. He carried it to a table near Hannah. He unwrapped the old cloth carefully. Inside was a small wooden box. The wood was dark with age. The box had a brass latch. He set the box on the table. He did not open it yet. He looked at Hannah. "Miss Reeve, I am going to ask you to do something hard. I am going to ask you to trust me one more time." Hannah looked at him. Her chest was a small hot drum. "I sent for you 9 years ago," Cole said. "I did not know it then. I did not know that I was sending for you. I sent for a name. The name was on a paper your father gave me when he saved my life in the Boston fire of '81. I was a boy. I was 16. He carried me out of a burning beam. He told me one day he would have a daughter. He told me her name would be Hannah." Garrett Hook spat on the floor of the general store. The storekeeper made a small noise that was not quite a word. Cole did not look at them. "Your father and I had business together. Long before your mother died. Long before he lost his hand at the foundry. Long before he ever signed any bond to any man in Boston. We had a claim. Up the mountain. A piece of ground with silver in it that I have been pulling out a loan for 9 years and putting half of every dollar into a bank in Helena under your name." Hannah's hands were on the edge of the table. "I sent the ad," Cole said, "when I learned your father had died. I sent it because the claim is in both our names. The claim cannot be worked alone after the holder's death without a co-holder of record. I sent it because the silver runs out in maybe 2 more winters, and after that the land is yours alone if you want it. And I sent it because your father told me to. He made me swear. If anything happened to him, I was to send." He looked at her. "You do not owe me a marriage, Hannah. You never did. The ad was the only legal way to bring you here without those men taking you first. I am sorry I did not say so plain in the letters. I do not write well. The letters were written for me by a friend at the church, and I had to choose every word like a stone." Hannah's eyes were wet. She only felt the cold line on her cheek. "If you are still with me, hit that subscribe button. It tells me you want the rest of these. The story has not turned yet. It is only just starting to turn." Garrett Hook laughed. The bad laugh. "A pretty story, mountain man. You should write it down. Print it in a paper. Charge a nickel. The bond is the bond. Pinkney has read it. The writ is the writ." Pinkney coughed once. "Mr. Breyer," he said, "if what you say is true, then there should be a corresponding document. A claim. A partnership. A signature of the late Mr. Reeve. You understand? I can only enforce paper. I cannot enforce stories." "I have the document," Cole said. "Then produce it." Cole opened the brass latch of the wooden box. He did not take anything out yet. He looked at Hannah. "There is one more thing first," he said. "I need you to do something. You will think it is strange. I need you to take off your coat." The room went still. Hannah stared at him. The men behind her went quiet. Even Garrett Hook shut his bad laugh. "Take off my coat," Hannah said. "Yes." "Why?" "Because I want them to see what I am about to do. And I want you to see it too." She did not understand him. But she had not understood him from the moment she had stepped off the stagecoach, and she was tired of not understanding him, and she was tired of being afraid of men with papers. She unbuttoned the top button of her thin gray traveling coat. She unbuttoned the second. She unbuttoned the third. The coat slid off her shoulders. Cole stepped forward and caught the coat before it could fall to the floor. He folded it neatly. He set it on the table next to the wooden box. Then Cole did what the men in the room did not expect. He took off his own coat. The long, heavy fur coat that came down past his knees. He took it off slowly because his shoulders were stiff from years of cold work. He shook the snow from its collar. He stepped to Hannah and laid the heavy fur coat across her shoulders. The weight of it almost buckled her knees. She held it. It was warm from him. Pinckney the lawyer raised his eyebrows. Garrett Hook's mouth opened. Cole turned to face the 4 men in the room. "This woman is cold," he said. "She came here on a stagecoach for 10 days from Boston with one thin coat in her trunk. She is cold and she is hungry, and she has not slept indoors in 2 weeks. Any man who came into this store today thinking he was going to put a hand on her is going to walk out of this store with that hand still by his side. Or not at all. That is the first thing I needed her to see. That is the first thing I needed all of you to see." The fire in the stove popped. "The second thing," Cole said. He turned back to the table. He lifted the lid of the wooden box. Inside the box there were 3 things. There was a pocket watch with a worn brass chain. There was a folded sheet of paper sealed with red wax. And there was a small leather pouch that clinked softly when Cole lifted it. He took the pocket watch. He held it out to Hannah. "Your father's," he said. "He gave it to me when he carried me out of the fire. He told me to give it to his daughter if she ever came west looking for me. I was not going to give it to you with men in the room. I had hoped to give it to you in the cabin, by the kettle. But there is no time for that now anymore." Hannah took the watch. The brass was warm because the box had been near the stove. She turned it over. Her father's initials were scratched into the back. HR. Below the initials was a second set of initials she had never seen before. CB. Cole Breyer. 2 friends. A vow. She closed her fingers around the watch. She could feel her father in the metal. "The paper next," Cole said. "Mr. Pinckney. You will want to see this. Read it aloud, please. Read it so that everyone in the room hears it." Cole lifted the folded sheet from the box. He did not unfold it himself. He held it out to the lawyer. Pinckney came forward, took the paper, broke the red wax seal carefully with his thumb. He unfolded the paper. He held it up to the lamp. He cleared his throat. He read, "Be it known, this day, the 17th of August, year of our Lord 1872, Henry Reeve of Boston and Cole Breyer of Black Pine, Montana Territory, do enter into partnership of equal share over the silver claim known as Sweet Hollow, located on the eastern slope of Black Pine Mountain. In the event of the death of either party, the surviving partner shall hold the claim in trust for the heir of the deceased. Said heir to be the daughter of Henry Reeve, Hannah Reeve. Signed this day. In ink. By both hands. Witnessed by Father Doyle of St. Mark's, Boston." Pinckney lowered the paper. He looked at the signatures. He looked at the R on Henry Reeve. He looked again. He looked at Hannah. "Miss Reeve," he said, "may I see the bond again?" Garrett Hook took a step toward the lawyer. Cole took a step toward Garrett Hook. Garrett Hook stopped where he was. The lawyer set the 2 papers next to each other on the table. The partnership paper on the left. The bond on the right. He looked at both R's. He looked at the dates. The partnership was signed 9 years earlier. The bond was signed only 2 years earlier. In the bond, the R on Henry Reeve was written the wrong way. In the partnership, it was written the right way, the way Hannah had described, the way a man writes after his hand has been crushed at a foundry. "Mr. Hook," Pinckney said, "this bond appears to be forged. I cannot enforce a forged bond. I will not enforce it. Furthermore, the bond claims a daughter as collateral. In Montana Territory, no daughter can be held as collateral on any debt. That clause is void on its face. I do not know how it was registered. I will be inquiring with the clerk in Helena. He will not enjoy my inquiries." The blood on the corner of Garrett Hook's mouth was very bright in the lamplight. "Mr. Hook," Pinckney said, "I would suggest you leave Black Pine before the snow stops." Garrett Hook and his 2 men did not leave Black Pine before the snow stopped. They tried to leave that night. The sheriff, A quiet man with a long mustache who had been standing outside the store the whole time at Cole's request met them in the street. He took the rifles from their hands. He took the false bond paper from Garrett Hook. He walked the three of them down the street to a small wooden building with a single barred window and put them inside it. They would ride to Helena in the morning under his guard. They would not ride alone. Inside the store, the lamp burned low. The storekeeper had gone to bed in the back. Pinckney had folded the partnership paper carefully and placed it back inside the wooden box. He had tipped his small hat to Hannah and to Cole, and then walked out into the dark with his leather case under his arm. Hannah sat by the stove. She wore Cole's heavy fur coat. She held the pocket watch in her lap. Cole sat across from her with his hands on his knees. They did not speak for a long time. "Your beard has snow in it still," she said at last. "It will," he said. "It always will." She smiled. It was small. It was the first time she had smiled since Boston. "I do not know what to do," she said. "You do not have to know tonight," Cole said. "Tonight you sleep. The storekeeper has a room upstairs. He has set the fire in it. There is a clean blanket and a kettle on a stand. Tomorrow we ride up the mountain if the snow lets us. I will show you the claim. I will show you the cabin. I will show you the books I keep. The money in Helena is yours, half and half. The land is yours, half and half. Your father held half. You hold his half now. And the marriage." Cole looked at her. He looked back at her. "There is no marriage," he said. There was an ad. "There is no marriage. You are a partner. That is the legal word. Partner. If you want to stay, you stay as that. If you want to take your half in money and go back east, I will sell my half too, and we will split it even. If you want to wait a year and decide later, you can wait a year. There is no paper that asks you to be anything you do not want to be." Hannah looked at the pocket watch in her lap. The brass caught the lamplight. "And the letters," she said. "The letters you sent. The letters where you said I would have a place. All true. And the part where you said you were lonely." He was quiet for a long second. "True," he said. "But that part was not in the contract." She laughed then. A small surprised laugh. She had not heard her own laugh in months. She slept that night in the room upstairs above the general store. The fire in the small stove was warm. The blanket on the bed was clean. Outside the window the snow fell soft and slow. She kept her father's pocket watch on the chair beside the bed, where she could touch it without sitting up. She kept Cole's fur coat over the foot of the bed. She did not dream. In the morning the snow had stopped. The sky over the mountains was a clean, cold blue. Cole was downstairs already, with 2 horses tied to the rail outside. He had a smaller coat for her now, a wool one he had borrowed from the storekeeper's wife. He helped her onto the smaller of the 2 horses. He did not put a hand on her arm. He held the saddle steady. She put her boot in the stirrup and lifted herself. They rode up the mountain together in the bright morning. The trail was steep. The horses worked. Cole rode in front because he knew the way. Hannah followed in the tracks his horse made in the new snow. The cabin at the top of the trail was small and square and made of dark logs. There was smoke rising from the stone chimney because Cole had paid a boy to keep the fire while he was in town. There was a stable with 1 mule in it. There was a small wooden shed where the silver tools were kept. There was a back room behind the main room where a single iron bed sat against a wall, with a wooden table and a kerosene lamp, and a window that looked east at the valley. "This is your room," Cole said. "If you stay." Hannah stood in the doorway. She looked at the bed. She looked at the window. She looked at the lamp. "And your room," she said. He pointed. "The main room. Off the stove. I sleep there. The door between has a strong lock on the inside of yours. You hold the key." She held the heavy iron key he gave her in her hand. It was cold for 1 second, and then it was warm. "Cole," she said, "why did you ask me to take off my coat?" He thought about that for a long time. He looked at the boards of the cabin floor. Because the men in that room thought you were a thing they were trading. I wanted them to see that the first move I made was not to take something off you, but to put something on you. I wanted you to see it first. Before any paper. Before any reading. Before any signature. I wanted you to know that whatever else you are in Black Pine, Hannah Reeve, you are warm. You are not cold anymore. A boot stamped down on the wooden plank of the cabin porch. It was his boot. Snow scattered off it across the boards. Hannah listened to the sound of it. She heard it differently now than she had heard the first one. She closed her hand around the iron key. She closed the other hand around her father's pocket watch. She walked into the small back room that was hers, and for the first time in a very long time, she felt that she had a door she could close without being afraid of who was on the other side.